Hi, my name is Mitchell Saylor, and I'm going to be discussing my process of painting a jeep at a lake. I begin with a drawing on canvas lightly toned with burnt sienna. I start by painting the sky using a mixture of cerulean blue and titanium white. I start with the areas that are furthest away from me, and I build up the painting in layers, working toward the foreground. And I went and painted the lake because it had similar colors to the sky. I used sap green, ivory black, and ultramarine blue for the reflection of the trees in the lake. I paint the lake in horizontal strokes with a soft filbert brush and keep the reflection smooth. The sky is a dome above us and gets slightly darker as you go higher up. I have white where I would like the clouds to be, and will add more color as I proceed, making it a more evening setting. So I'm putting the shadow under the clouds, which is a mixture of alizarin crimson with touches of blue. There can be more yellow in clouds than you would think, and I'm pushing the color of the clouds in this painting for the evening scene. I also incorporate pink into the color with a mixture of cadmium red light, alizarin crimson, and white. I also have touches of the sky color in the clouds because the clouds subtly blend into the sky. I am using a soft filbert brush as well as a liner brush for the details. I like switching between many brushes throughout my painting process so that I can easily work with different colors and avoid muddiness, and also achieve different effects with different brushes. These clouds are opposite the sun, so they are brightest in the middle where they are densest, and also at the top. I love painting clouds and developing the details of their forms. I use a fan brush to blur the edges and integrate the clouds into the sky. Though I use both short and long handle brushes, I prefer ones with long handles and like to hold the brush toward the end or middle of the handle rather than like a pencil. This gives me more control to paint fluid brush strokes and prevents me from painting too tightly. I mix titanium white, ivory black, and cobalt blue to paint a grisaille, or a gray underpainting, laying in dark areas. Because of atmospheric perspective, the dark areas are lighter in the distance and become darker as I work toward the foreground. Painting the landscape from the background to the foreground builds up the layers in order, so you don't end up painting an object and then having to paint a background around it. I also generally work from left to right because I'm right-handed. With a lot of ultramarine blue and sap green in my mixture, I block in the dark areas of green for the distant trees. For this painting, I didn't have a reference photo of the Jeep at the lake, so I created the background of the lake from a variety of reference photos and painting I created of the lake in the past. I used cerulean blue, enhance a yellow light, and white in my mixture for the brighter areas of the trees. Following atmospheric perspective, I use a lot of blue in my mixture to convey a sense of depth, and then the colors get warmer as I move toward painting the trees that are closer to me. I use a soft filbert brush that has been worn from use and is somewhat frayed because it creates the spotted details of the leaves and branches on the trees that I want to achieve. It creates a really good texture. The trees are brightest on the tops where the sunlight's hitting them, and I'm also incorporating some of the colors of the lighter colors of the trees into the water so that you see that in the reflection. And then I use a fan brush to blur that reflection. I'm painting the clubhouse with a mixture of grays and really looking and studying the planes and details of that area. There's touches of green in that color as well. The sailboats are a fun detail to paint, and they are lighter than the lake clubhouse behind it, So that adds really good contrast to the painting, and there's a differentiation between objects. Values, how light or dark something is really critical when you're painting. The reflection of the sailboats in the water are darker and blurrier than the actual sailboats. In water reflections, light objects can get darker and dark objects can get lighter. So basically there's less contrast. If you want to more easily see this, it's good to squint, and then you can really judge your values. I have masked in dark areas and then put lighter color over top of that for the grass, and I have really upward vertical strokes that convey the growth of the grass. Then I mix a bunch of colors together to create a neutral color. The mixture has mostly cat orange and ultramarine blue, and that's used to paint the road that the Jeep is on. I am using stiffer bristle brushes now for the foreground to paint thicker and apply more texture. This communicates the sense that this area is closer to us. The dirt road and grass have strong textures that I'm conveying with the thicker paint. I'm using a liner brush for details and a bristle fan brush for the grass texture. Now I'm painting the dark shadows underneath the Jeep. Those are our darkest areas. It's good in oil to work from dark to light. So as I paint the part of the Jeep hit by the sunlight, even though it's black, this black is not going to be as dark as the shadows underneath the Jeep. So I'm using a mixture of grays in these areas, and I'm going to use that also for the tires. I'm really studying the shape of those oval tires, making sure that drawing gets right. The side of the tire is darker when you compare it to the face of the tire. And now I'm going in and getting all those details in the tire, and I'm really making sure I compare all the objects to each other and how they line up, and that's helping me with the drawing. Accurate drawing is really important to creating a realistic painting. I'm taking my time with developing all these details, and I'm laying dark and light areas stroke by stroke and really developing these details. I'm keeping everything in that oval form. Now I'm moving to other areas of the Jeep. I'm using a bunch of different liner brushes for all of these details as I work my way across the Jeep from left to right. I'm keeping my lines very thin and precise. I use walnut oil as a medium to keep my paint fluid. I'm also using a filbert brush for some of these details. So my paint is getting blacker as I paint inside the car where there isn't a lot of sunlight hitting it. So I had a lot of fun painting this really cute dog that is sitting at the driver's seat of this car. Though he is a white dog, it's important that I used gray paint to create some shadows, and also really was very careful with the black for the eyes and the nose and the mouth because I wanted to get that expression just right. I continue to add details with different liner brushes. I am being careful to keep my black really dark and make sure I'm paying attention to all the subtle changes in values and also to the drawing and all of the fine line work. And now I'm working on the reflection in the back window of the Jeep, and it's reflecting the green grass and also the road. So I am using all of those colors again. So I'm really taking my time in developing this wheel with all of the details in it. I also like to take time to stand back from my work while I work on it so I can see the whole thing. And you can really judge the whole composition and see if things are off. It can be kind of hard to judge it if you're studying it too close for too long. So being an artist takes a lot of patience, and it's a lot of careful studying and work to develop the details and bring it to a finish. So it was really fun to use alizarin crimson and cad red to bring in those bright red highlights, the punch of another color besides all the black. I have a lot of windows in my studio that bring in good natural light to work from during the day. When the sun sets, I switch to light from floodlights and a lamp that all have light bulbs for natural light. If I used regular light bulbs, they would be too warm, and I couldn't mix the correct colors to use for the painting. And I use a number of reference photos of different flowers to make up the flowers that will be in the grass behind and in front of the Jeep. I am still using my liner brush, which is also referred to as a rigger, in order to paint the delicate blossoms. I also keep developing the grass, the different lights and the darks. I also use what's called a wipeout tool. It's a tool you might see with ceramics typically, but in this case I can use it for painting, and I can pick out different details like an eraser. I can create fine lines with it and nice edges. So I enjoy using that tool, and I'm using really big bristle brushes to paint this grass and develop that depth. I keep working on the grass until I'm satisfied with that texture. I'm also going with a liner brush and doing some detailed blades on top of the more broader strokes that I was doing before, and then I go in with a liner brush to do more detail on the wheel, as well as put in those flowers and the decals on the Jeep. And then I paint those sunflowers, which were really fun to paint. So as I paint, I get more and more details. It's a good process when you paint to generally start with broader, big areas, massing in large amounts of paint, and then as you go along, you work your way toward finer details. I used a lot of Hansa yellow with cerulean blue in that grass in the foreground to make it nice and vivid. So here you can see the finished painting. I had a lot of fun painting this painting and describing my process to you. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe. Have a great day.